Hey guys, Bobby here, and in this video I want to talk about cancellation policies for wedding filmmakers and photographers, giving you 6 tips and insights on how to approach these situations. And at the end, I'm going to be sharing our exact cancellation policy and how we're handling things given the current situation. Now this week especially, these processes are perhaps more important than ever, but even without the current events going on around us, a cancellation policy is a crucial part of an event-based business and is necessary to keep you and your client protected. Perhaps the most important tip that I have is to make sure you have a cancellation and postponement policy outlined in your contract. This is going to work as the basis for anything moving forward. Run it by a lawyer or purchase your contract from a reputable source to make sure it actually protects you. Tip number 2 is to err on the side of being strict in your contract, in writing. Many of us are in a unique situation in being a small business because we truly walk the line between being a business while at the same time very much being a person. We have to protect our interests, but also need to be understanding to extreme circumstances. This is why we always recommend leaning slightly stricter on your policies in writing. That way you stay protected if you need to, but you can always be flexible in situations where you choose to be, and you really can't go the other direction on that. Tip number 3 is to do your best to push for postponement instead of a straight up cancellation. While it can still be frustrating, a postponement still essentially guarantees that income, albeit later. And yes, not every scenario can avoid a cancellation, but when possible, from a business standpoint at least, postponing is usually the best option. Tip number 4 is to make sure you're using the term retainer instead of deposit. And I guess before that, to make sure you're even taking retainers in the first place. A date should not be booked with you unless you've received a signed contract and a retainer as outlined in your contract. That retainer is what allows you to do some of the work on the front end and turn away other work. And if the event is canceled or postponed in certain scenarios, that retainer is forfeited and is what pays you for the work that you've done. Beyond that, it is important, legally speaking, to refer to it as a retainer instead of a deposit. And I am not a lawyer, but I am told, and my general understanding, is that a deposit is inherently refundable if services aren't rendered, and a retainer is not. Tip number 5 is to make sure you are understanding of the circumstances. This doesn't mean that you have to bend over backwards to keep the client happy at your expense. It simply means to read the situation. That can absolutely result in you sticking to your guns, enforcing your policies that were agreed upon, and keeping a retainer or something along those lines. But it can also mean being flexible and working something out that keeps both sides happy. Again, I'll point to having a more strict policy in writing so that you can make these types of decisions on a case-by-case basis. And lastly, tip number 6 is to make sure that your policies are legally enforceable. Again, I'm not a lawyer and you should absolutely be running these things by your lawyer. However, I often see policies that require payments in full if the event is canceled within X amount of days or something along those lines. And while you are absolutely able to try and enforce that, and I totally understand why you would want to, you may not be able to since services were never actually rendered. Again, this can vary on your location and it is best to consult your lawyer. So with those tips out of the way, I want to share our exact postponement and cancellation policy, and it's actually pretty simple. In the event that a wedding is postponed, the retainer is forfeited and any other monies paid can be applied to a new date. Also, if we are able to rebook the original date, we will apply the retainer as a credit as well. If the event is postponed a second time, the same rules apply and the contract will be renegotiated at our current rates if they happen to be different. If the event is canceled, the retainer is forfeited, and any monies beyond that we would try to have them keep as a credit or pass on to a friend or family member for similar or other services that we offer. With that said though, this policy allows us the room to be human and understanding of extreme circumstances. Depending on why the event is postponed, like in the current situation the industry is going through with the coronavirus, we will likely choose to be more lenient with applying the retainer to a new date to get that postponement as opposed to a cancellation, assuming they work with us to pick a date which we're still available for. So there is, guys, a quick highlight on an important topic that often gets overlooked in our industry. Of course, in light of recent events, this has quickly come to the forefront of concerns in this line of work. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And as always, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.